Hey everybody, welcome to Juiciest Games, episode 27. Hope everybody's had a very good week. This session looks to be brand new, so not much info on our competition. As always, if you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, please go ahead and feel free. Love being a statistical nerd and building up my number of subscribers. Gutter with nut flush draw at the bottom left. 6 deuce suited at the bottom right. Going to be a polarized 3-bet from me. A7 suited at the top left. Can't peel. Villain 3-betting and under the gun raise generally indicates a tighter range. It would be interesting though to loosen up our 3-bets versus under the guns, because I think players nowadays are more apt to raise pretty much a lot of suited connectors, all their pocket pairs, suited aces from under the gun, probably 20% of their hands, maybe a little tighter than that. So actually loosening up our 3-bet from the big blind facing an under the gun isn't the worst adjustment, because it just looks so strong. It's just one of those plays that we're going to get a lot of credit, and they're going to be a little wider than they should be, than they would have been 6 or 7 years ago. It's a great thing about poker. It's always changing. You always have to learn and adapt and grow and attack the population that you're playing against in ways that they don't really expect. Flush draw at the top right. Going to be just peeling versus a half pot size bet. Now that we have a pair, even better for us. We are ahead of some of the flush draws he has. Jack 10 is a double gutter. No reason to raise. Just going to call and try to realize our equity. The Jack of Diamonds is a very bad river for our 6-7. If he checks, we can turn our 6 into a bluff and jam, try to fold out a lot of his ace-x's. I think if he has two pair, he's more than likely betting it on the river. So we can eliminate all two pairs. And yeah, I guess maybe not the ace-6. That's him turning two pair. I still would expect him to bet most of his two pairs on the river. Ace-6 is his specific hand right there is very, very, very good because it blocks the nut flush. And it's two pair. I think he's basically got the perfect hand. Six-8 suited at the bottom right. We c-bet. Villain opted to flat in position. He doesn't have a full stack, which makes me feel like probably on the fishy side. Considering doing something a little nutty with the 6-8. Problem is with lots of pairs and gut shots, I don't know how Villain reacts when we check raise here. He does have some two pairs in this range. He does have the nuts in his range. Probably his pairs and gut shots just check back the turn, so his range is probably a little better than what I initially thought when I was considering raising. King Queen suited. Monotone board, don't love it, but obviously still have to bet with our top pair, and just going to be betting on brick turns and rivers. I think sizing is very important here. We want to size small enough to where Queen Jack just opts to flat. We don't want to fold out all the hands that we beat. One mistake that players can often make is making bets that fold out all the hands that we beat and only get called by better hands. And I think this is one of the reasons why. See there, we got lucky making our king on the river. But this is one of the reasons why players get upset all the time and say that, you know, I've ran into the nuts 50 times in a row, and they're folding out all the hands that they beat, and they're obviously just going to keep getting called and get action from the hands that beat them. So essentially, if you have these thoughts of like, I'm just running into the nuts every time, like, you really need to take into consideration maybe you're playing your hands in such a way that only the nuts can call. Going for tiny value at the bottom right. Guess it was a little too thin against a guy playing 13-7. Maybe he's got some king queens in his range. Maybe occasionally an ace queen, but we block ace queen. So because we block ace queen, it's just less likely that he has it. Calling with the king jack off at the bottom left. Looks like I'm cold 4-betting at the top right. I think it's reasonable given frequencies of villains so far, although because of our overbet jam with the 6-7, maybe we don't get as much credit. But I think once we cold 4-bet, the button jamming is top of his range all day. Jacks plus. Flatting the pocket sevens on the button. Villain's opening wide. Don't really know much about the blinds. No real reason to 3-bet in my opinion. We would just fold out all the hands that we have dominated, his smaller pocket pairs, his ace X suiteds. Jack 6-6, going to be a board that he's going to bet with a high frequency. The turn queen, he's also going to be betting that turn card a lot. I feel like if he does bet, and he bet big too, looks like I peeled the turn. Oh, we flopped a straight flush at the bottom right. That's pretty good. The more interesting spot is the peeled turn with the pocket sevens. I feel like we should have just raised there, but maybe because I feel like he's going to be barreling that turn card a ton, that I have good enough equity to just peel. Not the worst payoff with the pocket sevens. I don't really like his sizing though, as far as like bluffs are concerned. I think he probably goes a little bigger with bluffs. So if we do pay off, I don't think we're going to be winning. Getting 3-1. I don't think we're going to be winning more than 25% of the time here. I think we should just fold. The better option, in my opinion, was to just go ahead and raise the turn, rep a 6, hope to fold out a lot of his top pair type hands. So I hope everybody's had a good week, ready for this Friday night value. Hope everybody's well rested, taking care of themselves, nutritionally good, ready to go. Leading with the Jack 8 suited, can't really count on the button to c-bet, so making sure that the bet goes in on the flop. Interesting river. Opting to bet for value. Looks like we're going to take a more polarized route. We're sizing big, hoping to get called by 8x, thinking that they have a chop with all 8s. We also have some busted straight draws in our range, so maybe we can get paid. One of the problems maybe this villain peels flop with ace high, checks it back on the turn, and we just value own ourselves on the river. We really need to have confidence that villain can kind of think his way up the ladder and put everything together that we need to be put together so that he can pay off that bet. A lot of times you end up believing that villain can do that. Villain is capable of leveling himself and flatting, calling that river bet with an 8. And the reality is villain is also afraid of the ace, thinks that we can just bet out on the flop with a lot of ace highs, and now we're going for value. Better play, instead of betting almost close to pot, would be betting like half pot or something like that, where villain can tell himself that he gets a lot of chops, occasionally have busted straight draws. Tin deuce off in the big blind at the top left versus button, who is opening pot. Tin deuce off is a great hand to squeeze in this spot. Don't lose a lot of equity. When we flat, I mean, when our flatting range in that spot with a fish in the small blind should include a lot of queen jacks, a lot of king jacks, a lot of hands that have the fish dominated, make the reg, play his hand face up. Tin deuce off does nothing. We think the button's going to be opening super wide. We think the fish is going to be calling super wide. So it's just a great opportunity to squeeze with the bottom of your range right there. Calling with the ace-10 at the top right. Don't really think that the one seat bets his two pair on the turn, so when he bets the river, we can pretty safely call. Leading with our king-queen, another spot where the 4 seat is a fish and can't count on the 2 seat to go ahead and throw in a continuation bet. So don't want the flop to go check, check, check. Now when the fish flats, don't think he's really folding his draws, so we can bet close to pot, get max value from our king-queen. At the top right table, the hand that just went through, where we called the river with ace-10, villain's repping, he's trying to rep a 6. That's the only hand that goes bet-bet. He's shown a tendency to bluff, so no real reason to give him credit and fold our ace on the river. And no real reason for you to ever be afraid that he's got a full house, because he doesn't bet the turn with that sizing with a full house, because he's so afraid of the ace. Like, if we have an ace, we can just raise the turn. He doesn't get to realize his equity with a sets and 2 pairs. So his range is super polarized towards 6s, occasionally an ace, and basically nothing like he had, or a flush draw. Flatting queens on the button at the bottom left because of the fish in the big blind. We haven't 3-bet yet in 30 hands, although this is a good spot. You can make a good argument for 3-betting the queens. You can also make a good argument for just flatting the button with the queens. Checking back the flop, think that the fish is probably going to bet the turn with an ace. Once he checks, we're pretty good to go. Preflop raiser betting doesn't make any sense. If he has a good hand, he's just going to bet the flop because of the 1 seat. He's going to want to get in multiple bets. Now we get 150% pot on the river by the 4 seat. He's trying to rep a set of jacks, I think. I mean, that's really all he can rep successfully. read on the turn was that basically he's full of shit. Just betting because it's likely nobody has anything. Our perceived range in this spot is going to be lots of jacks, king jack, jack 10, queen jack. So how's he going to get value versus those hands with a set? Very unlikely. So since I don't have much of a value range, I'm going to be paying off that river bet. And that's the thing. For him to have value in his range there, he has to construct a range of hands that I can have to call him. When he overbets right there, what hands do I have that are going to call an overbet in his mind? Not many. So if I have no hands that can call an overbet, I should be calling an overbet pretty light. Unless he's like, next level thinker and thinking that if he overbets, he knows I don't have any hands in my range to call with. He knows that I know that he knows that. So then he's going to overbet for value with all of his ace X's, but we can pretty much eliminate that just because of the fact that he did not c-bet the flop with a fish in the pot. If he has a value hand, he's just going to be betting that spot. So very hard for him to rep anything. Getting squeezed by the 3-seat with our 8s. Pretty sure I'm going to fold, and the reason that I'm going to be folding is because the 1-seat is such a fish that he's likely going to be calling that 3-bet very often. The 3-seat knows that. So even though the 3-seat has a 17% 3-bet percentage, that's a spot he's not going to be 3-betting very light. As it turns out, he has jacks, takes a bad beat versus queen 10. I flopped a full house. But what can you do? Sometimes you just gotta fold full houses. Peeling with king 4 off. Maybe a little light. I think the 1-seat is just such a fish that I want to get involved with him in as many spots as possible. He's going to be making terrible decisions. We've already picked off a couple of his bluffs. Think he's going to fear us a little. He's going to, when we pick off a lot of the fish's bluffs, it makes them a little less likely to bluff us. They get a little afraid. And whenever fish are playing straight up, their checks mean nothing, their bets mean something, and we can capitalize on that information. That's the thing, when you're running well, when you're making good decisions, when you're beating people, they're going to play more straightforward against you. They're going to be less afraid to take chances. They think that you can see through their bluffs. They think that you're going to raise when they're weak. They're just very, very undecided in their actions. And when that's the case, we just have a huge edge. We really need to capitalize on it. Queen 9 at the bottom left. Ace on the turn is a good turn. Neither of these villains likely have an ace unless they have the nut flush draw. Since he did not raise the turn, I think he does have some flush draws in his range. Obviously going to be betting for value. And we get like very small raised, and looky there. Flush versus straight flush. Can't really fold given his very tiny raise sizing. If he jams, we call 2. I think he's going to be jamming worse flushes. I think I went back and checked that hand history because I couldn't realize, I couldn't figure out why I lost. Why did I lose? He only had a 6-high flush. Going to be betting the ace-queen at the bottom right. Going to be timing out at the top left. Click back in, sir. Nope, now I'm sitting out at that table. After the check back on the flop and villain called our turn bet, looks like we're going to be going for an overbet value. Excuse me. Well, it looked like we were going to try to go for some overbet value, but instead we opted to go for a more traditional value bet. Winning at showdown with a pair of sixes at the top right. Folding at the bottom left. One seat has only 3-bet 5% now. Very passive players just generally don't 3-bet enough. So no reason to ever 4-bet them. They're never going to mix up their game. If they're a fish, we just need a 4-bet for value. Play our hands very, very straightforward. No action with the ace-king of clubs, very unfortunate. Guys, I'm not sure if you've checked out my website, enhanceyourhedge.com, signed up for my newsletter. Every week I add a new video in my video vault. And if you haven't signed up for my newsletter, there are now 17 videos that only my newsletter gets access to. Whenever you sign up, I send you the code, the password to get into that section of my website. And so if you really like my content, if you're going through my videos, if you finish the whole series, there's an extra 17 or so right now and counting that you haven't seen. And a lot of them are 50 NL. There's some 100 NL. Some different stakes than I've put on my YouTube channel. In a couple of weeks, whenever OBS updates their software, I'm also going to start Twitching, so look for me on Twitch. I'll advertise it on my website. I'll send an email to my email list as soon as I figure out the schedule that I want to use. If you have any suggestions about Twitch, just send me an email. Could have 3-bet our 10-4 suited at the bottom left. I think the 4 seat's going to be isolating pretty wide. 10-4 suited is another one of those low equity type hands that we don't lose very much if something crazy happens. 3-betting the ace-queen off for value at the top right table. Turning a straight at the bottom left. Come on, Brad. Opting between checking and going for $4 worth of value. Looks like we went for $4 worth of value with a straight on 4 to a flush. I think it's very hard to get called by a king, but maybe some villains will call us. This particular villain looks pretty nitty though. So can't really imagine him calling us with worse. Maybe he can turn something into a bluff, but I think we just want to go check on the river. If he bets, then we should be inclined to fold. Raising with ace-10, blind versus blind. Good turn card for us, top pair. Checking to induce bluffing. Gonna be hard for villain to call us with worse. I think villain bets Jack-10. Just called our raise, so he does have some king-queens in his range. Most of his range is just made up of ace-x hands as well, though, and we'll be chopping. Don't really think he's ever bluffing at that point. You could make an argument for raising the river to fold out chops. A little risky though, considering he does have king-queen in his range occasionally, so he could be bluffing into the nuts. Looks like the 1 seed at the bottom left table is talking trash to the 2 seed. Some fish on fish trash talking going on. King 3 suited, depending on, you know, I think is another good candidate for 3 betting in that spot. King tray off at the top left. Looks like we get to see the 5 seed, what would have happened. And we would have got a 4-bet. I guess the fish did leave at the top left, so that makes it a lot worse. Got an overbet at the bottom left table. Our range is capped. We do have some ace-x in our range. We did just pay off his overbet. This hand is a lot different though. This hand's a lot different because we have ace-x in our range, and he knows that. So generally, his overbet there, after just getting caught, is gonna be ace-x heavy, and even quads heavy. Very interesting to me how, you know, the overbet is such a seldom used tool in players' arsenals, and it's such a risky tool because sometimes, like, you need to get it right. You need to be getting the folds when you want to get folds, and you need to be getting the value when you want to get value. So you have to understand, you have to be very precise when you're using it. And I think the 4 seed, who's used it twice so far, I think his judgment's a little off. And when your judgment's off, like with the queen's hand and the king 7, he lost 2 bets, and 50 big blinds with the king 7 in a spot where his overbet bluff is just never working because obviously I called with queens, and then he also opted to overbet for value with an ace. I'm assuming that he had an ace, and he lost value there. So basically, if he bets smaller, he gets paid when we have the queen jack, and on the other one he just shouldn't have bluffed. So basically, he's probably given away $240 in value just by mucking up the overbet. So it's really important that you use it correctly. Jack 10 suited at the bottom left. Is this villain 3-betting because of the fish in the big blind? I think he's wider here, like a lot of ace-x off. That's just going to be a jackpot board for us. Royal draw. No reason to raise. We have a lot of ace-x's in our flatting 3-bet range, so he's going to slow down on the turn a lot of times. We can just pick up the pot. Now with his bet on the turn, I feel like he's going to be jamming most rivers. We have amazing equities giving us an amazing price, so we can just go ahead and peel extremely profitably. And now that we brick, we just fold and move on with our lives. In spots like that where we have a big draw and villain is just giving us such a great price, there's no reason to raise. There's no reason, we don't have, from his perspective, we have more aces in our range than flush draws. So even if the flush does peel off, we are going to get paid. If the straight peels off, we're for sure getting paid. Three bet with ace king suited at the top right. Just going to be going ahead and 4-betting this guy. Seems to be pretty active. We do have some depth So something to take into account when we 4-bet. Since we do have depth, I think he's going to be inclined to peel, and we're going to be firing shells, probably multiple shells post flop to fold out a lot of his range. So just something we need to prepare ourselves for when we do 4-bet. Guys, looks like we've got about 30 seconds left in this video. Thank you very much for, watching my videos. I very much appreciate it. Appreciate all the support. Join my newsletter. Watch more of my videos, and I'm going to be seeing you guys next week. Good luck. Wait, let's fold the 9-7. Yeah, okay. See you guys.